Remember, please hit like and subscribe for me. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go. Hi, everyone. Today is Thursday, January the 15th, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. Taking a look at a wide-angle picture. Want to make sure that we get our ducks in a row mentally about what's going on here, and we can see that we are still in a buy the dip zone. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes we look at the stuff and we go, holy cow, how can I see that dip down to 69.11 and think, hey, they're going to buy it? And this is the storyboard. Zoom out. Take a look at your formations and say, am I making higher lows? What price action has to do on a daily formation is come back in and hold the floor. And so what might the traders have been looking at to position themselves to see whether this was going to be a buying event or not? So first things first, on the daily, we could see the VWAP and the point of control very close to each other. Those numbers, 69.23 to 69.50. You and I have been watching 69.50 a lot. That actually is where the zero-DTE put wall is today, so they're still holding that steady. The call wall still up at 7,050 as we take a look at the E-mini S&P here. There's a big gamma line sitting at 70,015. Now, so that's the big thing. What we want to think about is how big money takes a look at the market and says, okay, we should hold X or we should hold Y. And the reasons that they do that are, of course, to figure out where they're going to buy. And so we always have to look at those zones of inventory accumulation. And how do we know what inventory accumulation looks like? It's support and resistance that continually get retested over and over again and hold. And so you can see that big money is looking for price action to come into that 69.30 at this juncture and hold. And we certainly did that. So the upside pressure event puts us back to the top of that trading range, 7,025. Are we lifting this morning? Absolutely. So let's dig in, take a look at the price action. We can see that inventory in the overnight is long. The first 30-minute formation, let's look at the highs and lows there. You can see that that first 30-minute high, we broke above it and then retested. Notice how this happens. Watch. Overall, we've got a downward trend on the 30-minute chart. We have this top, and then for the whole day, we sold off. We got into the overnight, bounced actually into that trend line space, which really works out to be where this wick is. So again, it's always a horizontal line of some kind. And so getting up above that 63 zone, pretty important. So we're going to leave 63.50 there, 6,963.50 as a region of an old floor and a break to the north. Notice buyers towing the line. So we have overnight inventory. There's a supply zone here. Demand zone's all the way down here. Supply zone up here into old support, new resistance from the initial breakdown. What are we going to look at? We're going to look at that 30-minute opening formation. That's going to be the line in the sand to me. Above that zone, 69.9675, buyers are going to have way more confidence getting into the fray. My suspicion is we come down, we test 69.63, it holds, becomes the buy zone, and traders continue up to the top. Now, what if this is wrong? First things first, if we get to 69.96 and we cannot get up over the supply zone at 7,004, price action will fall back into the space and this area at 69.80 to 69.60 become the battleground. Ideally, in my mind, I took a long yesterday covered it at 69.50, but it did rise into the last hour of the day. I don't like trading that last hour, mostly because sometimes it really reverses dramatically, but it did. They bought the dip, and so this dip event is the thing that traders are going to have to defend over the long edge. Any pullbacks into 69.50, 69.60 that hold will give us more buying pressure. Okay, so they are still buying the dip. Supply area up here into 7,004. We breached that. We're back up to 7,025. Okay, let's take a look at the NQ. Let's go to the daily. Let's delete all these annotations. Start fresh. Here's the daily chart. What are we looking at? Dip buyers, right? Dip buyers for sure. What's happening up here? A lot of supply. A lot of supply, but they're still buying the dip. And if they keep buying the dip with force, we want to see continued flow on volume as it pushes up there. They're going to break through 26,000 and head to the north. Call wall, 26,500. Put wall, 24,500. That's still very far away. The zero-DTE put wall, 25,300. So that's the zone that we are staring down, right? Lines in the sand. You know, we want to see if it can get up over 26,100. Let's jump right into the 30-minute, see what happened. Overnight inventory, long, same sort of structure. Watch. And you can do this with any chart, your RTY, your YM, whatever you want, right? Negative trend. From there, positive trend from underneath. And so the thought is, okay, what am I going to do here? Is it going to reject the flow or hold the support and move to the north? So if you're staring it down and you go, hey, I want to take short at the value area low, your thought should be, okay, old support, new resistance, nothing wrong with that. How do you know if you're staying on the right side of the trade? Price action does what you expect it to, which is continually fail and continue in the trend line. What did it do? It held the floor. So the floor of the formation to watch today, 25,530. That's very important. Pullbacks into that area, easily a buy zone, right? We've got that. Where are they headed to? Gamma wall above, supply zone above. The key area for buyers to get through today for more buying pressure is above 25,920, right? If it gets above there, it's moving to the next supply zone, which is 26,000 and change. All right, so we're going to look for that as our upside pressure. What's the ideal buying space? You know, the old selling zone, 25,630. If it comes in there, it's going to be great. Now, the VWAP is protecting price at this juncture. So you could say, maybe I just use that as my support zone and I get involved at the VWAP. That's always your choice. The goal is, can I get into a trade and manage the risk? And here's the thing. If you get into the trade down here at 25,630, remember, it's an if and then. So if it comes into this area and it gives us another higher low relative to the breakout zone, and then it recovers it, we've got ourselves upside pressure. If not, no cigar, right? We could even remove this one. Let's remove this one. Pardon me. If we went to this edge and drew this trend line, it's even more apparent how important this number is. Traders are making higher lows and higher highs. Depends on what kind of flow we've got going. This is going to be a very tricky day, I think. But all the days have been tricky. The key thing to note is there was a failed breakdown here. Price action broke through the value area low and recaptured it. right into the end of the day, in the overnight here. To me, the line in the sand is this 25,632 for the buyers. If they come down, lose it, and recapture it, still buying pressure. If they come down, lose it, and they can't recapture it, we could easily go into the zero DTE put wall, which is 25,300. Excuse me. Let's take a look at micro Bitcoin. Like a 70-year-old man with all these noises that I'm making, sorry. And for those of you who might be 70, no harm. Don't worry about it. I'm right there behind you. Let's take a look at the daily chart here. This one, wow, right? Again, let's take a look at what's going on. Value area low, big range, big motion. It breaks the value area low and is trying to recapture it over the last 2 days. So this morning, first area of the breakout, that is the number up at, let's remove all these annotations. That is the number up at 95,000 and some change, right? So now we're about $2,000 above that zone. It's a pretty important ledge, okay? 95,000, pretty important ledge. Now that this has been a failed breakdown, the question is, it looked like a failed breakdown here, broke down again. Here's the difference. Made a higher low. So we've got all these higher lows. Could we be building another formation like this that breaks above our 95,000 and then starts moving into these big areas like 100,000, 106,000? Hard to say. Not really sure what's going on with the Bitcoin bros, but here's what I'm seeing. Failed breakdown, value area low. So they've recovered it, line in the sand. My thought is, as long as they can hold this 91,000, they're in good shape. So let's collapse and see what's going on. All right. Trying to build volume. Inventory is a little bit messy here, right? It's a little bit messy. What we can see is they are buying the dip. We are moving forward in this sort of rounded bottoming space, and it's gotten steeper, right? So how do we know it's gotten steeper? Because this trend line is not touching these right here. So there's actually, let's clone this so we can have some parallel motion. Right? So what we can see is that these two lines are keeping us really in the fray. So what's the trade? Breakout above 98, probably headed to 100 because it's got all of this area that it's held from value area low in the big picture. All right, so what we want to do is put an alert here for the break above 98,000. That's going to send us into 100 slash 101, 102. If, per happenstance, we break back below value area high, we've still got buyers. But my suspicion is that the loss of 96 will send us back down to 95, and then potentially the VWAP, this rounded bottom. These traders like to look for these cup and handle style formations. I don't do that sort of thing. Just not my wheelhouse. But this area here at the VWAP looks like a pretty good number to watch. See if it recovers 95, and then Bob's your uncle, right? So pull back to 95 gives you some pressure. If it loses 95, folks, the stair step down is pretty likely. So you want to be very careful hanging on, right? The call wall is sitting at 95. The put wall still down there at 80. So they're holding some protection here. All right, let's get to silver. Let's do oil first. Okay, so oil had this massive move. It's just all of our triggers went off. So first thing, we're removing everything here. It had, let's take a look, daily formations, failed breakdown, potentially here, right? Below value area low on the daily chart. So this number at 57.80, 57.60, that's sort of our line in the sand. We'll firm it up when we get to the 30-minute. Huge supply zone up here. Fairly solid supply zone that it hit right on the money yesterday. Super close to the VWAP. Okay, so that is still $62 breakout formation. All right, we'll put that alert in on the tighter time frame. So what are they doing? Is this a failed breakdown? Well, if it comes back and holds 57, the answer is yes. Remember, the administration does not want these numbers higher. However, if we want to continue to be oil independent, energy independent, these numbers have to rise because we're a capitalist society and we're not going to throw good money after bad. Okay, so trendline event, pretty important. Failure here. Here's that failed breakdown, the look below and fail. That means it doesn't head lower, it holds. And so now we're looking for the retest of that zone to be a buying area. My thought maybe the zero-DTE put wall, which is at 58. Let's zoom in and see what's going on. All right. On the tight time frame, over just a few days, we are below value area low. Inventory is very short in the overnight. We're coming into the anchored VWAP and the low of the prior day. So this is going to be the first zone that we see the traders try to buy, and they are entirely trying to do it. So what do we want to do? We want this trigger, if it loses that zone, you could easily chase it down into the next areas of relative support. So, you know, could that be 48? Yes, it could be, right? Old resistance, new support. 50, 58.50, and then there's the put wall, but the anchor looks a little bit higher. Excuse me, a little bit lower. So that anchor event where the put wall could come in and then bounce is this 57.80. So we're going to be watching that zone too. Pulling back into this area gives us a really nice buying pressure event. If we were to do something like measure the Fibonacci from the high to the low in this structure, we would see our 50% line right where they're battling right now. So this becomes a bit of a do or die. Let's watch this area to hold. If we look below, bounce, and then collapse below again, we know we've got continuation. Right? If you're saying to yourself, hey, well, I don't want to go through all of that look, and I just want to say I'm going to go long or short. If you go long, don't break 58.85. That'll be messy. If you go short, it's a little bit more risk. We don't need to get up above the value area low, and that's 59.70, right? So 30 points of risk to the downside, 40 points of risk. 30 points of risk to downside pressure, 15 points, 20 points of risk to upside pressure. That's up to you, right? But it seems likely to me that if we hold 59.13, getting back to 60, not going to be a problem because that's the middle of the trading zone. And that's where everybody has accumulated inventory. So midline of that seems quite reasonable. It looks pretty good to me. All right, silver. I don't even know what's going on with my throat this morning. Okay, silver, still rocking. Let's get all of these annotations out. Let's go to the daily. Very big motion. This is parabolic. I can't even draw a line, right? I mean, I could, but it's moved far away from the edges, right? So when it starts moving like that, that's exponential motion. And so That's why we would call it parabolic. Who remembers f of x equals x squared? Sorry. So what are we looking at? This is very interesting to me. It appears that we had a pretty significant inventory accumulation event between 69 and 83. And so in this inventory event, they're distributing now, right? We're looking at this and they're in distribution. So if I clone it and I say, all right, where might we hit at the top? It's at the one-day max for Mentor Q. And that puts us at 95 and some change, right? So apparently spot prices are well below what's happening in the futures. I have no idea how that works. Way above my pay grade. But it seems to me that for things to be stable, spot prices should still be somewhat higher. But I don't know for sure. Let's jump into the tighter time frames. We can only see these formations, we can only see these calculations here on the daily chart. Let's go into the 30-minute and see what's happening. All right. We touch the put wall, the zero-DTE put wall in the overnight here. That's interesting. Inventory is short, surprisingly. We have a trend line that is not very strong. We have a break, right? Let's see if we can find a better trend line. I don't know. I think that trend line is pretty good. We just had all of these wiggles, and this is something that we definitely see in the trading space of the futures. It is very volatile, very, very volatile, does not really pay attention to things like relative support and resistance and all of that fantastic stuff we like to look at. It does have a tendency to break through those edges. So let's suppose from this old resistance to being new support that this was the inventory event that they worked through yesterday. Let's see if that in actuality gives us the measured motion, right? So we're looking, let's see if it gives us another halfway or, yeah, that's a little bit over halfway. Let's see if a Fibonacci does a better job here. Fibonacci does the same thing. Yeah, I don't like this one. I don't like this fib. So let's try the next fib. We'll try this high to this low. 50% range gives us, what is that, $89? Yeah, $89.90. That gives us a support structure, but I would prefer to look at the bottom of the structure than the top, which is 88.70. That's going to be the alert. Pullbacks into that zone. That's the do or die zone today, in my mind. If it loses 88, we've got ourselves a trip down memory lane to 86. If it holds 88, we're walking to the top of the box and, you know, all these up here. A lot of people thinking we're going to 100. And listen, we could. It is still a deep buy the dip formation. Look at what's going on with the option traders, though. The call wall way down here, 85. Put wall, 84. So these walls, they're way out of whack. So we should see them shift. One-day max from Mentor Q is $95.06. Dips or buys. Last significant accumulation, if we're trying to see where did they start building new inventory events, seems like it's right here. right? And they broke out up above $89.70. So, you know what? Pulling back into that line, also not a disagreeable event. Me, what do I like to do? I want to wait and see how it develops. If we move all the way back up into the supply zone and we reverse, we start reversing, I'm going to take a short there. If we pull back, so that number is going to be value area high. Let's do an alert right there. That's 92.50. I want to see if it fails. If it fails 92.50, short action event. If it pulls back into 88.70, initial long action event. If it breaks either of those, I'm getting out and turning in the opposite direction, right? Because that's going to be breakaway action. I don't want to be long and short in breakaway action, or breakaway action to the south, $88.77. I don't want to be long into that breakdown action. Okay, so zero DTE put wall, $87 and some change. A lot of buying pressure here at the 86 zone. Dips are still buys, folks, but the structural formation, take a look at this. Overnight inventory, long. Day before that, overnight inventory, long. Night before last, overnight inventory, long. Last night, overnight inventory, short. That's different. That's different. So we've got to pay attention to one of these things is not like the other. Which one is different, can you tell? Right? So let's watch this 92 area and see what goes on. Okay, gold. All righty. Let's see what's going on with gold. That looks nothing like silver, right? Nothing like silver. Let's look at the daily. Daily action, dip buy. I read a cryptic post from Albert Marco, and he said gold bugs are right for all the wrong reasons. I don't have any idea what that meant, but spot gold is also trading at a discount to the actual price. Where is the call wall? 4,800. Where is the put wall for gold? 4,000. So there's an $800 spread here in this formation. Look at what they've done. Value area high, broke out, came back, held the breakout in the overnight, brand new group of buyers. Moving up. So what do we want to look at? Can we hold this value area event where they come back and they test 4,420? If that happens and they hold it, we've got ourselves buying action. Now, here's the thing. If it comes in here, it's likely to come in and test below and then break out again. So wait for it to recover back over the edge. Unless you're scalping, and then you can try it. But notice there's a line of inventory accumulation at this 4,368. This is clear inventory accumulation to me. Right? This box. On the base of that accumulation is 43. So you got to be a little bit careful there, right? We definitely want to be careful there. All right, let's go to the 30-minute chart. What is this, dear friends and neighbors? Do I hear inventory accumulation? Yes. Popcorn and cookies to those in the back. So this is what we're staring down, right? A breakout, holding a base, that's 4,593, 4,594. Probably could come back and do that and then break above 4,600 again. Let's see. I'm going to leave the edge wide, right? I'm going to leave the edge wide, so if it comes in a little higher, like 4,600 or drops a little lower and then recovers, we're looking at great shape. So what are we staring down? They bounce out of value area high and collapse. They bounce down out of value area low and collapse and reverse. So do we look at wash, rinse, repeat? Potentially. So how do we do that? Let's put an alert close to the top of the box. A lot of supply sitting up here, 4,650. If we test that zone, there's going to be a decision made. My suspicion is that it's a short, but look at the stretches above. So you've got to wait for that breakdown that collapses on easily. Let's see what time frame they collapse on. 15-minute is good enough, right? 15-minute collapse is good enough. If it collapses after a 15-minute time frame, short action, same here on the bottom for the long action. If it breaks away, we've got ourselves a rally right up into, what is this number? Gamma level 3, which is 47. Let's put that alert back on there. 4720. That's what that looks like. Okay, so we got that flow up there to that target. The measured move to the downside, ladies and gentlemen, puts us round about, I think they break this low if it comes in here. It comes into the zero-DTE put wall, which is 4,510. That's probably going to be a magnet if it fails. And so we'll create a line around 4,500. Let's make it a little wider, okay? We'll make a wide line here, so we do that. All right, let's go. Let's take a look at SPY. Now, remember, folks, the reason that I go through this every single morning, all the time, is not so that you can just go, okay, here's the level. What I want you to be able to do is replicate it. So if I drifted off into the ether, not only could you know what to do, but you could show somebody else what to do, right? Just, you know, sharing is caring. There you go. So that is an important thing for me to accomplish with you. So pay attention to the, I wonder why that's happening kind of thing, and see what gives. Okay, so we've got ourselves a pretty messy patch here. Let's see if this holds. Nope. It's very tight. It's very, very tight. Trying to incline still clearly by the dip. It is absolutely by the dip. Here is the interesting thing. The point of control, where all this price action is sitting very close to the put wall. The put wall is 680. What did they do? Bounced into the put wall, and in the overnight, they have run up the rails, right? Very nice bounce zone. That is the line in the sand. As long as we're above this 680, it's going to be buying pressure. Now, the question is the following. Do you want, oh, that's a daily one, cancel. I'll do it on the day, on the 30-minute. Do you want to go long at 692 when you know the floor is 680? Not really. You know, not really. But what we do know is we are making higher lows and higher highs. And the NQ does not look like this, right? SPY looks like this. NQ does not. And, you know, if we are looking at the IWM, which everybody's gone crazy talking about the RTY, you know, it's great until it isn't. And it's sitting right at the top of the call wall for those of us that are understanding what's going on here. Watch for this. It's, you know, I don't think it's going to break. This is going to be a look above and fail. But if it fails and holds a brand new area of support, $250, we got upside pressure on the horizon. IWM looking okay, but there's some decisions to make, and $265 is pretty important for that chart. Okay, here we are with SPY. You know, we got all kinds of news coming across the wires today, and let's take a peek at that. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Okay, Thursday. Jobless claims, retail sales, Philly Fed, Empire, Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, New York Empire State Manufacturing Index, import-export, business inventories, EIA report, bills, Fed chairs, Fed balance sheet, and I don't know what they're doing kicking the can down the street over this tariff situation. Whatever it is, that is going to jolt the market. I don't know which way. Could send it all the way to the top, could send it crashing to the floor. I don't know. Here's what I do know. We're caught between the call wall in SPY, up at 700, and the put wall, which is 680. Yesterday, we collapsed into, ding, 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 value area low, and immediately began to recover. So what do we not want to do today? Lose value area low. We don't want to lose that. If we lose it, we're back down, and the next demand zone is sitting here near 682 to 684. It's a pretty wide swath, right? We've got a gap up, pretty big gap up here, and so the goal is to fill the gap and then move to the upside. Yesterday, we gapped down and then recovered. Here we're gapping up. We should probably fade on the back end of that. I don't know. I'm supposing that if I get to value area high, I'm going to look for it to break down, and I'm going to test. I'm going to test this number at 596 for a reversal event. Right? Let's make that a little bit wider, so in case that it goes off, we'll be able to get ourselves a nice short trade, but clearly a lot of inventory holding in this place. So watch these value area lows. In my studies, obviously, I don't normally talk about them that much, but they were very apparent as I was studying the charts. And so keep an eye open for everything. And good luck trading today. It's going to be sticky. Take care.